Yo, you know Bezel just launched auctions?
Really?
Yeah, they did. You could bid on watches inside the app. They give you notifications on auction drops, and it's still authenticated. Oh, shoot, I won.
Yo, what you win?
Man, don't worry about me, man. Go download the app. Go visit getbezel.com.
Oh, come on, man.
Welcome back to another episode of Wrist Check Podcast. Tonight we got a very, very, very special guest.
Very special.
A cultural icon, entrepreneur, athlete,
Yes.
New York native, Nigel Sylvester.
Yes, sir.
Welcome, my man. Thank you for coming through.
Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you.
I'm here.
We're gonna get into some things and talk about your story and you know how watches kind of fall into place. So I'm excited to get into that.
Yes, sir.
But beforehand, you know, we have to have our honorary wrist check, as is tradition. We always start with the man who, quote unquote, never repeats a watch.
Who's repeated the watch almost every episode.
So you haven't been for this. So we're somewhere in the neighborhood of like 80 episodes deep.
Okay.
And for the first maybe 50, this guy hadn't repeated any watches.
Fire.
Yeah, he's so, you know, but the title is I think it's fading away, my man. What do you got on the wrist today?
So I am wearing a new watch.
Okay.
Well, new to the show.
Okay. All right.
New to the show.
Got it.
Worn this one yet?
I haven't.
Surprising.
You wore the yellow one and the black one.
I wore the yellow and the black one.
Okay.
So of course, you know, G-Shock is our DNA, the reason why we collect the watches or why we love all things that are cool.
Mhm.
So I had to go with the Supreme North Face G-Shock collaboration.
Right.
Of course, the you know, the DW 6900
Mhm.
reference is iconic.
Right.
Absolutely one that is noticeable, you know, from afar. This polarizing white to me was just like the banger.
Sure.
You know,
Feels very NASA.
very NASA. I mean, I like the hint of red with, you know, the double signage there.
A triple stamp G-Shock.
A triple
Yeah,
stamp
facts.
G-Shock. I think one of the first of its kind, but you know, I think I want to give this some wrist time and enjoy it a bit.
What's your favorite out the set?
I would say it is. So I have all three colors
Fire.
of the set. But the white, since I got it, I think is my favorite.
That's dope, my man.
Yeah.
Ben, you got a new watch on your wrist.
Yeah.
What's
I'm
going
wearing
on over there?
Something new to the show. Something borrowed. AP offshore chrono 43
Ooh.
millimeter blue mega tapisserie dials. The only time I've worn a blue dial watch on the show.
It looks good.
It's true.
Probably the last.
No.
But
Titanium. That thing
yeah,
is nice.
it is titanium, so it's a bigger watch than some people might want to wear, but it's super light, so
Mhm.
it's nice and comfortable. Rubber strap, ceramic pusher, ceramic crown, red hands on the dial, so lots of contrast.
I love
Can't
the
go wrong.
offshore, man. I still don't understand why it's like trading like
I want a
as
taupe
below
one.
retail.
I want the same watch, but the taupe dial and the black ceramic bezel.
Yeah, that was one that
If
you were
anybody's
after.
listening,
We know who
pretty
you are.
please.
That's
Yeah.
the vibe.
I'll go next. We'll save our guest of honor for last. I'm wearing a new watch in the show.
Woo.
It's an old watch, but it's a new watch. I had a Rolex Pepsi Modern.
Yes.
Probably
Yeah,
one of the.
you went on a modern kick for a while.
I did. I went on a little modern kick. I'm probably one of the only people that actually did not enjoy that watch and got rid of it almost immediately.
Wow.
I had it maybe for 2 months,
Mm-hmm.
but you know my heart is with vintage, and so I was able to make this happen just before the new year. Shout out to Eric Wind and Charlie.
Yes.
But I got a 16750 vintage Pepsi, 1986.
Woo.
I'm in love.
Yeah.
It's so warm. It's so nice. Feels good. Oyster bracelet like it should be.
Nope. We took a poll already. Jubilee
Fuck the
won.
poll. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
You put the poll up. You put the poll up. Come
Shouldn't have
on.
happened.
Oh, we did the-
Everyone who voted Jubilee, they know where it's at.
Oh, Jubilee.
Yeah, Jubilee
Vibe,
won.
man.
Nice patinaed looms. Sick, very creamy. Man, I'm in love with this. You said pause.
I said, hey.
Hey. Shout out to Killer. Man, I love this thing. It's the gift that keeps on giving. It reminds me of Rolex I knew when I was growing up, which is why I'm not as big of a fan of modern watches.
Yeah.
I love them. I think they're great. But my heart is with vintage.
Yes.
Going over to our guest.
Fire.
What do you got on the wrist tonight?
The Chirelli's in the sky.
Woo!
GMT2.
Let's go.
Root beer.
Yeah.
Modern.
There we go. Shots fired.
I love it. I'm probably wearing this the most right now, actually. Blackface. I mean, it's the perfect watch for me. Honestly.
It's a beautiful piece.
Nah, I love it, man.
The modern root beer GMT is actually one of my favorites, and it's because the that Everose,
Right.
the rose gold that Rolex does, which is proprietary. Their color is like as warm as it gets.
Nah, it's perfect
with rose gold. It's very, very nice.
Yeah, I've had it for some time now, and I love it, bro. Like I said, I'm probably in this watch most days. I'm wearing this journey.
And it's a GMT. I mean, you do a lot of traveling. You get around a lot. Exactly.
Like those dual time zones for me is like perfect.
So clutch.
Nah, it's amazing. I can always keep track of what's going on back home and whatever I'm at in the world. So
I love that. That's awesome.
Actually, like the utility of it, I appreciate, and I couldn't.
And it looks good.
Nah, it looks amazing. It looks amazing on my skin tone, man. Look at that thing.
Fire.
Yes, sir. I love it.
So, for those that don't know, watching or listening, our friend Nigel Sylvester here is a professional BMX athlete.
Yes, sir.
I want to, very briefly, if you could sort of explain your background, because what's interesting about your story, you're a New York native.
Yeah.
Grew up in Queens. New York City is not a place that is conducive to a young black man becoming a pro BMX athlete in terms of environment, whether you're talking about terrain or exposure. So I'm curious, what influenced you to pursue this passion, and how did you arrive there?
Man, like when you put it like that, and you're kind of 100% right? Like New York City, especially growing up in Jamaica, Queens, like Carlton, Queens to be exact. Man, like me coming up, I didn't see anyone riding bicycles in that way.
Right.
You know what I mean? It wasn't until like later on where I found like other kids who was also like in love with BMX riding in that way. And I'm talking when I say in that way, meaning like beyond just riding around, doing wheelies and possibly doing a bunny hop.
Right.
Like, let's jump off this table, let's ride down these stairs, let's jump on these handrails. But as a kid growing up in Laurelton, man, like I just fell in love with bicycle riding, man. And like I got photos as a kid in my grandmother's driveway where I'm on my bicycle and I'm just like happy, like big smile on my face.
Wow.
And I always say like the bicycle chose me at that point in time, and I just fell in love with it. And as I dove more and more into the culture of BMX, at that time it was really just going to like the store, like the bodega, and buying a BMX Plus magazine. Like that was my like kind of portal into the world of BMX, where I can see what's going on around the world. I can see what's going on domestically. And I would cut the photos out and put them on my wall. Wow. And I would go to sleep looking at these images, imagining like what being a professional BMX athlete would be like, and wake up in the morning looking at these photos. Like it was everything to me. And then as I got older, probably around the age of like 11, 12 years old, I started to see other kids in my neighborhood who were into riding BMX. And I was like, oh man, other kids doing this. And that was like a big motivating force.
So you had like a community.
Yeah, it was a crew of us. It was probably like 12 of us total.
Wow.
Man, but it felt like it was everything to me, man. Just to see other kids doing it. And I was always like the youngest kid in the pack. So I'm like looking up to these guys. And it was a great way for me to learn about the BMX community, right? Because those guys were able to like leave the hood and come back and tell me certain things. I was too young. My mom wouldn't let me leave the hood yet. You know what I mean? Wasn't until later where I had to beg her for like years, like, can I please go to the skate park with these guys? Because growing up in Laurelton, there was no skate parks there.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? Which is why the kids myself and the kids from my neighborhood, we chose to ride street, which is the most accessible kind of discipline in BMX, because you don't need a big skate park. You can go outside and do it in front of your house, right? You can go to the park and grind the bench or find the rail or jump down the staircase, wherever you find that at. And that was it for me, man. Like it was between like seeing it on TV once a summer, getting that magazine, those kids in my neighborhood, and then like when I was able to get like a BMX VHS tape, I would watch that and I would rewind that thing a million times. You know what I mean? Like that was like the early days for me.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So it's like I think what's really interesting about it too is because the way New York is set up, the creativity it must have allowed you in terms of figuring out, well, I don't have access to a skate park. I'm not going to the place that some of these guys are going. How do I take my environment and use that in a way that A, fulfills me, and B, allows me to like grow at this sport.
hmm
What was that like in terms of like venturing out into New York City and like kind of like finding your style?
Yeah, man. Like New York City is actually like the perfect place
Okay.
for someone such as myself, who's a very curious kid,
Mm,
wanting to like find my spot. And when I say that, meaning more discover who I am and like my likes, my dislikes, my
because
taste.
you created a niche like
Right.
in terms of like what you bring to the culture of BMX riding. Like,
Mm.
you started your show Go,
Yeah, my series, like the
your
Ghost series.
series
Yeah.
Go, and it's like you brought like a whole new lens and
Right.
community to it. So
Mhm.
talking about like New York being like the perfect landscape
Right.
is incredibly interesting because it's like you're creating your own opportunities
Right.
visually.
And I feel like that's what New York City is, right? Like this is like the land of hustlers, right?
Yeah.
Where people make like something out of nothing,
Yes.
you know. And like that's what it was to me with, like with BMX, right? Where like when I started to leave Laurelton, right, and like go to Crown Heights or go to like the Bronx or Harlem or different parts of Queens or different parts of Brooklyn. Um, those influences, right? Like I was able to take what I wanted and leave what I didn't. You know what I mean? And that was very important in my journey,
Mm,
right? Because that helped me develop my POV
Yeah.
and my taste level.
right.
You know, and that's why I think New York is the best city because there's so much of everything,
Yeah.
right? If you go on a bike ride and you go on and just ride in any direction for 2 hours, the things you would see and encounter, the people
Right.
you would talk to,
Yeah.
things you would smell,
Yeah.
like what you would eat, like all of it is just, it's just, this city is inundated with so much,
Yes.
you know what I mean? And I feel like everything I've done throughout my career, it's been, it's been referenced from something I've seen throughout my childhood,
Wow.
throughout my life. You know, it's like you speak of like the Go series, like
Mm-hmm.
that was at that point in time in my career, I was able to create that series and it did wonders for me. But it's really just putting things that I've experienced and encountered throughout my life, my career into this one video
Wow.
and showing people really how I live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is really what I'm doing on like a normal day,
Yeah.
you know? And I think that's why I resonated with people so much because it was authentic to me. Like people see me do certain things, but they never seen all of it in one setting.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
You know, and if you know New York City, it's very capable at you could be in Harlem in the morning
Facts.
chilling with somebody and
Yeah.
then jump on a train or something, and then you're in Brooklyn and
Yeah.
then you go home to Queens and change up, and you're back in the city at nighttime. It's very feasible to do all of that in
Yeah.
one day. So it wasn't like this outlandish thing that people couldn't understand, or it seemed like it's unfathomable. It was
Yeah.
very relatable.
You had something, please.
I think something that's very impressive as well is, especially following you through social media for a long time, for all these years, I've seen, your growth and your progression and the community that you've created.
Right.
And, shout out to, to Quest Security. Cause like
Right.
at this point, like when you're out in public, like you have like monsoons of people just like following you and like
it gets
going
crazy
crazy when they
sometimes.
see you. And I think
Right.
that's very powerful. And people are able to see you in the streets. Like you're
Right.
out there, you're riding in these like local landmarks and people are able to touch you and talk
Right.
to you. And, when you are out there, building with your community, like you receive so much love because you are authentic.
Right. No, yeah, and I'm happy you said that, man. And it's very real. And the other day, I thought about this, bro, because I was in Miami trying this trick. And I'm literally on a corner, this intersection in downtown Miami, like right across from 11.
Mm.
And it has like this amazing handrail set up across the street. Don't know why, but it's there. And if when you think about my discipline of BMX, so like almost all of it is based off of what's going on in natural environment and
Right.
repurposing architecture and
Wow.
design like naturally.
Mm.
So I'm riding this rail and it's like a lot going on. There's this building being built across the street. There's traffic coming from both directions. People are stopping their cars, and getting out and taking photos with me. You know what I mean? And like filming like me try this trick. And then the very like next day, I flew over to Paris to go to the Louis Vuitton show. And I was like, man, I'm like, it's this amazing juxtaposition that makes up my brand where one day I could be on this corner riding my bike in downtown Miami and kind of in the hood. And the next day I'm front row
At Louis
in
Vuitton.
Paris at Louis Vuitton. And then I'm back somewhere else doing something different.
Yeah.
But that's really what my brand is made up of. You know what I mean? It's authentically me. Like me being on the block riding my bike, or on a park somewhere riding my bike is me, but also into fashion, into high-end fashion, into luxury, into art and things of that nature, that I can very well do that as well. And that's something that like I just think is special. You know what I mean? That not a lot of like athletes or creatives get to do.
It's incredibly special, and you know, in that way, it's so funny because when you think, you know, growing up, you know, in New York City, when BMX started to get popular, you started seeing like ESPN and the
Right.
magazines and stuff like that. It was like something that would like transport you, for me, outside of like New York City. But like when I think Nigel Sylvester, when I think the brand, I think BMX, but I also think luxury.
Yes.
Right.
And I think it's really cool how you've kind of transcended the sport in a way by bridging the gap between these two parallels, two things that might otherwise not go together. You
Yeah.
find a way to like make it work.
Right.
How did that came naturally? It was just like your New York upbringing, like your perspective?
It came naturally, right? Because both of those things are authentically me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So it
Like,
was intentional.
definitely was intentional. You know what I mean? It wasn't just something I like kind of stumbled upon. It was
Yeah.
something I thought about and like actively pursued.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like riding bikes is something that again I love and it's everything to me. But getting fly and appreciating luxury and in a sense of the time that goes into something is also something I appreciate as well.
Yeah.
'Cause
And
when
I-
you
and I wanna
ride-
interact with that.
When you ride, you dress like how you typically dress
Yeah.
normally.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I've seen you. There's a couple of rides. You've worn your watches too, like doing tricks and stuff like that.
Huh?
You did a product campaign.
Nah, that was somebody else actually. We didn't do the Prada joint.
Oh,
But
okay.
shout out to Prada though. We need to highlight. me.
But I've seen. We need the product.
They may need to come this side, you know. what I
Yeah.
mean?
But it's funny because like I remember seeing like videos of you like in the streets doing your thing, and like you got on like the day.
Yeah, I'm rocking and rolling. Like,
Yeah.
because again, it's just naturally me. And you
Right.
know what it is too, man. Like as I'm coming up in Queens, right, and I'm outside riding my bike, I'm seeing like the hustlers and the dope boys outside, like living that life, right?
Right.
So I'm like, man, like I want to know what that feels like. You know
Yeah.
what I mean, it was part of the inspiration, right? Like,
Yeah.
I see cats pull up in like the 95 Maximas rimmed ups, or like the Lexus GS joint, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, or the LS Lexus joint. I'm like, that's fire. You know what
Right.
I mean, that was part of like the motivation for me. So it was like for me, it was always like when I get to that point where I can afford those certain things or do certain things, I'm gonna do that,
Yes, sir.
right? Like I'm not gonna shy away from like the things that motivated me and inspired me
Mm.
as a kid.
How did you feel that your public kind of received that, like as you were creating this world of Nigel Sylvester?
Certain people enjoyed it and certain people didn't. You
Mm.
know, like I think it's one of those things that like not everyone is going to
Understand.
appreciate or understand.
Yeah.
Better yet, like what you trying to do. You
Right.
know what I mean? And I think as an athlete and as a creative, it's just my job to authentically be me and tell
Mm.
the story that is me. Other than that, like I can't do anything else.
Right.
You know what I mean?
This episode of WCP is sponsored by Bezel, a trusted marketplace for buying and selling watches. With over 18,000 and counting watches listed from both private sellers and professional dealers, you have your pick of the litter from brands like Rolex, AP, Patek, and more. Bezel is one of the highest rated marketplaces for watches. Inside the Bezel app, you can make offers on watches, buy them outright, bid at auction, all with confidence knowing each timepiece is authenticated by an in-house team of experts. For more information, visit getbezel.com or search Bezel in the App Store and download the app today.
In life, there are choices and options. Choices set the tone. Options change the mood. And while you aren't able to drive 2 cars, you can, however, travel with 2 watches. Introducing the Shuttle, a traveling watch case in collaboration with WCP and Wolf. Godspeed.
Available at wristcheckpod.com.
So you got this root beer. I'm curious. This was your first Rolex.
Nah, this was my second.
That was the second. What's
Yeah.
the story behind this? How did this find its way to you? Was this something that you were after, or
Actually, I seen it and I wanted it, so I was like, "I'll go get it."
sometimes it's that simple?
Yeah, it wasn't like a crazy story. It was like, that's just fire.
Yeah.
I'm in the market for a new watch. and I wanted something that was completely different than Day Day. I was
Mm.
like, man, like let me go with the Rootbeer.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
You know
by
what
the
I
time
mean?
you get the root beer, you're already kind of like accustomed to Rolex because you've had the
Yeah.
Day Day. What did it feel like when you got the Day Day? Was that a special moment?
It was, man. Like, and the reason being is, man, like it was one of those situations where at that time it's probably like my most expensive purchase. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So again, like coming from where where I come from, and like this dream of being this professional athlete,
Right.
and having so many people like doubt me on it, not believe in it, not really see the vision, for me to be able to work my way to the point to purchase something like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was like, it was just one of those really fire moments for me. I was proud, I was happy about it. And also it was like a tribute to my grandfather, because coming up, my grandfather had an all gold Rolex. I think it was the Datejust
Oh wow.
36. So I've grown up watching him wear that watch. So I was like,
Yeah.
man, like one day I'm gonna get one of them joints.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then I finally got like the Day Day, and it was just like a super dope moment. And like that year in my life was just an incredible year. I got it in 2018.
Mm.
And 2018 was just this very pivotal moment in my life. Like my brand just grew exponentially.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like I signed a few big deals that year. And then I dropped my first AJ1 with Jordan Brand that year. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I got the Day Day months before the shoe dropped. But that year, when I look back on it, it was a very significant year in
Wow.
my career, man. Like it definitely elevated between like, again, like new partnerships, and we dropped 2 shoes that year. I dropped the AJ1
Mhm.
September 1st, 2018, and I dropped the Air Force One October 1st of 2018. Man, so like being a BMX athlete in the way that I am, I don't compete in any contests. Like
Right.
I'm breaking the mold
Mhm.
on what success looks like as an athlete. Period.
Right.
You know, and then being able to drop 2 shoes with Nike.
Yeah, it's
You know what I mean?
incredible.
Like one on the Jordan Brand side and one on like the Air Force One. Like Nike
Yeah.
side. It's like what? Like it was just a moment, you know.
It's funny that comes up because today we were talking about in the bungalow about everybody getting or wanting a Rolex. It's like a symbol of success.
Hell yeah.
It's
So like the first
best
one being
trophy.
the Day Day. Yeah.
Yeah.
We literally
It's a
said it. I was like, yo,
trophy.
like that's a trophy.
Yeah.
It's legit.
So that being your first one is crazy. Solid
Yeah.
yellow gold too.
Nah, it was a trophy for sure, man. Like I knew once I had the money that I needed to, like the money to purchase it, I knew I was getting it. It was no second thought about it, and
Yeah.
I'm happy I did get it, man.
What do you think? Sorry, what do you think changed for you in 2018 that really just blew up for you?
I believe it was a culmination of a lot of different things. It was like the hard work I've been putting in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I turned pro in, I believe 2007 or 2006, something like that. You know what I mean?
How
So
old were you?
I was 18.
Wow.
So to think about like, and other things happened before that. It was just 2018, which is a culmination of all those years. You think about from 2006, 2018, those 12 years just grinding at it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like traveling the world and pushing myself on my bicycle to do these tricks that haven't been done before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like creating new content. You know what I mean? Like as far as like the Ghost series and things of that nature, like pushing myself in that realm. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like doing things that other BMX athletes were not doing on and off the bike. I think
Right.
a lot of those relationships and that grind just culminated in 2018, where again, like a lot happened that year, man. Like from again partnerships to product that we were putting out to content we were putting out. Like we put out Go London to Paris, and we put out Go Miami in that same year. You know what I mean? So we put 2 Go videos out. We dropped 2 sneakers. Like
Yeah.
I got signed to Samsung. Started working with Montclair. Like it was
Did Mercedes happen the same year?
Mercedes that same year. It was crazy.
Ramoa? No.
No, remote came after that, man. But it was wild, right? Cause I remember it was so crazy. I think that was 28. Yeah, I think it was 28. Yeah, so yeah, it's 2018 because when I dropped my shoe, is the first time I worked with Mercedes.
Okay.
And even that was like a super cool moment because it was kind of like this, not kind of like, but it was we'll see where this goes. Like we'll give you a shot and see what happens. And for me, I'm a strong believer that you give me a shot, I'm going to make it happen.
Right.
Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I paired that Mercedes opportunity up with the launch of my Jordan 1, and it was a success. You know what I mean? So we dropped the shoe in New York and LA in the same exact day. So we did a drop at KIF in the morning time. jumped on a jet, flew to LA, and we dropped it at RSVP in the nighttime.
Wow.
And throughout that journey, we had 3 G wagons in New York and 3 G wagons in LA. And we had them branded with like gold decals, and it was a sick moment. But it showed Mercedes like what I can do with the vehicles, and then we signed right after that.
Wow.
So yeah, 2018 was just a crazy year for me, man.
That's crazy.
It's cool to see like the level of exposure you've brought to the sport. But then I think what's even more impressive is how you've used it to be creative and to sort of use it as like your canvas, and incorporating these brands in a way that the sport had never seen prior to your arrival. Going back to watches, and you mentioned being into the Rootbeer because of utility.
Right.
Equally stylish, right? I mean, it's a beautiful
Definitely.
watch. But I know you talked a little bit off camera about like G-Shock being one of your first sponsors. Did watches always kind of have a place in your world? Where did that come about, sort of?
No, I did, man. Like, I signed with G-Shock in 2020.
Okay.
Right. And I used to be a partner in this boutique in Queens, and we were carrying G-Shocks at that point in time. So that parlayed into my partnership with G-Shock. And I always looked at watches as like a great way to like accentuate your feeling that day, your outfit, your mood, like whatever story that like you're trying to tell. You know what I mean? Whatever perception that you're trying to put out to the world.
Yeah.
And that partnership with G-Shock lasted for a minute, and then throughout that time, I would match my outfits with different G-Shocks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then also like create content around time, you know what I mean, and around the concept of time. So I always appreciated watches, right? And then like the functionality of it.
Yeah.
So I look at my brand as like, well, like when I'm doing things creatively, I'm always thinking, well, I want it to work well and function well, but also want to look amazing.
Good.
You know what I mean? And that's how I approach life. Like this like duality between functionality and style.
And aesthetics, yeah.
You know what I mean? So like working with G-Shock really allowed me to dive into that concept. And the partnership was great. Like it ran its course. The people over there was amazing.
Yeah.
I released 2 watches with them. We did 2 66900s. Wow. And the first one, like they both sold out really amazing, but the first one I believe we did, it was like the second best selling G-Shock in like North America at that point in time.
Wow.
So even that was a huge feat, right? Like me as a kid, again, like I'm 22 years old, something like that, like riding my bicycle, doing this very unexpected thing.
Yeah.
And I'm selling out watches across North America.
Yeah.
Like my mom FaceTimed me one time when she called me from the Macy's and was like, oh, they have a big like poster of you and the watches in like the showcase. And I was
That's
like, man,
dope.
that was one of the coolest moments for me.
Yeah.
I grew up like walking through that Macy's in Green Acres Mall as a kid.
Wow.
Yeah.
So for all these years later, to now have a G-Shock in it that's selling, and then my mom could go in and enjoy that moment. It was just really cool, man.
That's amazing.
That's incredible. I mean, Casio and G-Shock are so important to the culture.
Extremely.
I think it's like it's you can't do it justice in words, you know what I'm saying? But the fact that like we're in a time right now where I think watch enthusiasm is at an all-time high.
Right.
And we're able to sit here and we have Rolexes and APs, but the fact that our heart can still be with G-Shock, and the fact that like you can still have an impact on that business and their bottom line and do watches with them and sell out.
Yeah,
I think that's huge. That's awesome.
No, it's crazy, man. Like, I mean, if you think about like just the role that G-Shock played in culture, man. And, like,
100%.
It was
you think
so
about those
many
Pharrell
moments in pocket.
pieces,
Yeah,
Babe,
no,
Bust down
exactly.
G-Shock.
I mean,
Right,
crazy.
Bust out G-Shocks. The Ye was rocking them on the cover of Complex. Like all of that was such an amazing moment. You know what I mean? And even seeing what you rocking now is dope. I didn't even know North Face and Supreme did a G-Shock.
Yeah.
That's fire.
It was last
you know
year's
what I mean?
collab.
Like that's super fire.
They're one of those brands that really like can democratize like watches. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Where you eliminate the conversation in terms of like status, wealth, and it's really just about like the things that you like functionality and aesthetics.
Right.
I wanted to ask you, being someone that has like this eye for design that you have, an understanding of brands, you got your watch collection right now, which consists of 3 mechanical watches from Rolex,
Got some G-Shocks in there too.
And we got some G-Shocks in there.
I got a box full of fire G-Shocks that's still like in the plastic that I just got in the storage, just in the tuck. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like gotta have that.
Gotta have that. I wanted to ask you, you know, if Nigel was looking at another watch brand to get into, what are some of the things that might be important to you? And are you looking at any other watch brands? Is there anything else that's like piquing your interest?
Richard, man.
Richard.
We gotta go to Richard, man.
Okay.
And again, because like they're so rooted in sport.
They are.
I was gonna say,
Which-
what's crazy? That'd be the perfect watch.
Yeah,
That would be a
which I
great
love.
luxury collab.
Which I love, man. They're rooted in sport, bro, and like they're true to that. You see the athletes that they partner with.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's fencers and,
Mm-hmm.
High
and-
impact.
right, and
Yeah.
race car drivers and
Yo,
like,
the
horse
Nadal
racers.
watch would be perfect for him to have.
Yeah, sure, you got some joints in there. It's
Yeah.
light, and it's light. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
I've I've ridden in one before just to like take it for a test run, and I'm tricking in it, and it's fire. I'm like, this is super light, I don't even feel it.
Yeah.
Right, wow.
Which is super dope because like you think about bike riding, the wrist is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You usually don't want anything on your wrist.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
And I
because
imagine
it
like the
kinda impedes.
articulation, how you're using it too. That
Right.
could, yeah.
But riding in that one, since it was so light and like with that rubber band, it's comfortable. It made sense. Similar to G-Shock with that rubber band, it was just had a comfort to it.
Mm.
But I would definitely be like that RM.
You know what I wanted to ask when we were kind of talking about, you know, you selling out watches in North America and how, you know, you've had success with Nike and your 2 signature shoes. I know you were working on your Bike Airs.
Bike Air.
And that was like a big thing.
Right.
I was doing some homework and I was looking on like the secondary market, like when you talk about like how sneakers and watches are very synonymous. I've seen like Bike Airs like being like this big thing, like
Mhm.
you know, listed at crazy price points. Like
Yeah.
how do you gauge like value as far as like secondary market, like, you know, when you're buying watches, when you're buying sneakers, when you're buying apparel or anything else? Like do you kind of focus on like the secondary market?
Yeah, I do when it comes to sneakers and stuff, man. I mean, I still buy sneakers all the time.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I get like absurd amounts of sneakers delivered to me. but
Yeah.
I still buy kicks all the time. You know what I mean? And when it comes to watches, like I try to just only buy newer watches, even though like, I appreciate the vintage watches.
Sure.
and I'm sure like there's gonna be a vintage situation for me soon. But it's really about just like what I like. You
Yeah.
know what I
Right.
mean? It's just like my like taste level and what like what I'm into. You know what I
Okay.
mean? I'm not buying things because someone else has it. I'm buying because I like it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like what matters to Nigel.
I think that's important too. I mean, that's so key. It's something we preach often, buying what you like, because that's the way you can truly enjoy it. I'm curious, you know, you're talking about RM, you've done the G-Shock thing. Do you aspire to be a watch collector? Do you consider yourself a collector? Where do you see in terms of like, you know, you continuing that hobby?
I wouldn't consider like a watch collector right now.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But I know that's like probably in my future.
Got it.
You know what I mean? Like as I continue to build my brand and live life, I know like it's gonna probably eventually turn into that. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like even with like the last one I bought, I'm like, okay, this is becoming a thing now. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah, you got a watch you haven't worn yet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's still in the box. I haven't even take out the box yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I know it's becoming a thing because I'm into it. You know what I mean? I like it.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like I feel from like just like a design standpoint, also just from like I guess the standpoint of being like investing into things that I appreciate with time. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like I also consider that as well. So it's a combination of me liking it and then knowing that like I'm investing.
No, that your
something.
money is safe
Right,
in,
yeah.
in,
Yeah.
in
I'm
some
not
place.
just frivolously throwing it away.
Right.
Well taken care of.
Yeah. You know, in terms of your brand, you've had a ton of success. You got a lot to celebrate and be thankful
Mm.
for. Where do you see yourself going in the next couple of years? What's next for Nigel Sylvester?
That's a good question, bro. It's a really good question, man. I think at the end of the day, for me, I just want to continue to create
Yeah.
at the highest level possible.
Mm.
I want to continue to ride my bike, live out my imagination, explore my curiosities.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A lot of time when I'm in my creative process, I'm channeling things that I'm curious about.
Mm.
So I think as long as I'm able to continue to do that, I'll be fine. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, I think I've laid a pretty good foundation in regards to the things that I'm into and what people can expect from me. You know what I mean? Like, year after year, we're going to continue to push the bar across the board. You know what I mean? Whether I'm creating a content piece or a short film, whether I'm designing sneakers or clothes, whether I'm building out things with my foundation, you know what I mean? Like, whatever I touch, I like to make sure that I'm being progressive within that.
Yeah. I would like to touch on the foundation, if
Sure.
you could, for a little bit,
course.
because I think giving back is something that is also really, really important to us. Being New York natives ourselves, growing up here, we know what it was like when we grew up, and I think it's important we leave New York City and our homes better than you know how we found them. What is your foundation, and what are you guys aiming to do?
Right. So I started the Nigel Sylvester Foundation in 2021, and the focus was to empower kids through bicycle riding and education. So thus far, man, we've donated hundreds of bikes, like domestically, and most recently, we went to Grenada, where my family is from. So I'm first generation. My mom and my dad are immigrants, and I understand the sacrifice that they made. You know what I mean, to leave their home in pursuit of opportunity to come to America to figure it out. And throughout my life, I've seen them give back so much. You know what I mean? Like, whether it was sending barrels down.
Hell yeah.
We know the barrels.
Corned beef and all of the things. You know what I mean?
Socks and white tees.
Everything. You know what I mean? Like, my mom would take all my old kicks and, like, you ain't throwing these away, we're gonna send them down. Because people need.
Yeah.
You know? And like, those things go so far, and I've seen how that blessing has just came back tenfold for my mom and my family. So like, we went down to Grenada recently because a couple weeks ago actually, because this February was the 50th independence of the island, and it was celebrating all year. So we donated 50 bikes to the school that my mom attended as a kid.
Wow.
And it was such an incredible moment, man. Like, to see how these kids' faces lit up when they realized the bikes were gonna be theirs. And then we did like this really dope presentation, and then the kids were able to ride the bikes around like the little grass field in the back of the school. And like, watching these kids like pedal as fast as they can. You know what I mean? I sat there for a minute and I was like, man, like, these kids just took flight.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
And it moved me. I was like, man, this is why we're doing this work.
Yeah.
You know, like, to continue to share the power of motion, power of bicycle riding. And then and as well as we currently partner with Chase, and we have a financial literacy program in three New York City high schools, in Springfield High, Lincoln, and Richmond High School.
Okay.
It's pretty much a program focused on teaching seniors about checking and savings accounts, cybersecurity, and credit.
Okay.
You know, things that like
School usually don't
teach, but are so important to our
Yes.
life. You know what I mean? So again, like, just through my foundation, just giving back in that way, you know, things that I would wish I had as a kid. So it's important to me. You know, it's important to me. We're gonna continue to do that work. You know, I'm blessed with so many things. I get to travel the world and do all these amazing things, and again, be creative, and I have that freedom now, and I work for it, but I have it.
Yep.
And I think it's so important to like do my part to continue to share that, and I'm motivated to.
It's incredible, my man. You have an amazing story. It's incredibly fascinating. You know, I can't think of very many people like you that's been able to bring all of these different worlds together, and to do it in such of like, kind of like a natural way.
Right.
To pursue your passion, to expose the sport and your perspective to other New York City natives and creatives and people who are fans of the sport, and then ultimately like to take your passion and be able to create a position for yourself where you can actually impact those same people. It's admirable. I really, really salute you.
Thank you.
Want to say thank you for joining us this evening. I'm sad it has to come to an end so soon.
I know.
It always goes like this.
You know what I mean? We were chopping it up. But thank you.
Absolutely, my man. Incredible story. You got good taste in watches. We'll see what we can do about the vintage thing.
Yeah, we need to learn a little bit more about it, but
We'll hook you
I'm
up with some
open-minded
people.
to it, you know what I mean?
But appreciate you, my dude.
No, of course, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you fellas, man. Happy got
This
this
has
done.
been another great episode of Wrist Check Podcast. You guys know where to find us. If you're watching YouTube, Spotify, if you're listening, Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts.
Yeah.
And one day,
Maybe in the
Not the
metaverse.
maybe in the metaverse.
I
He
mean-
just came from the meta party. So you guys know we might have to talk about that.
Exactly.
Shout out to Metal, man.
But we'll see you next week.
Peace.
Later.